Yet they had to fight and protect their homes, and they kept losing and kept moving southwards through.
Hello everyone, I am Steve Dang, a Chinese in Singapore. Welcome you to my program. When we are talking about Vietnam War and the Hmong people, we must put a background behind the subjects. The background was that the Vietnam War happened between two sides. One side was Freedom War led by the US. Another side was Communist bloc led by the Soviet Union and Red China. In the 20th century, the big boss of the Communist bloc was Stalin. In 1950, in a meeting, Stalin told Ho Chi Minh and the leaders of Red China that China was responsible for Asia Communist Revolution. The Soviet Union would give some help. Hmong was one of the toughest and bravest allies for American Army in American history. Hmong people who were taking part in the Vietnam War were not for money, but for freedom. Hmong people were fighting against NVA to protect their homeland. NVA was North Vietnamese Army or North Vietnamese Communist Party Army. During the Vietnam War, the loss of Hmong people was very heavy. 20,000 Hmong soldiers were killed during the war. 50,000 Hmong people died from the war. At that time, the population for Hmong people was about 400,000. By 1970, even 11 years old boys were recruited in Hmong guerrilla troops. In this map, the pink area was Communist bloc, including the Soviet Union and Red China. In this map, Hmong people immigrated from north of China to the south part of China, and then immigrated to Laos. According to the legendary of Hmong people came to Laos from south part of China around 300 years ago. Hmong people love freedom. They are proud people. Hmong people had lived in China for several thousand years before immigrating to Laos. In China, the major nation is Han people. I referred Han people as Chinese. Chinese treated Hmong people as some animals like monkeys. Chinese were evil towards Hmong people. They carried many genocides towards Hmong people. Hmong people had to immigrate from north part of China to the south part of China. Then in the south part of China, Chinese took control of the lowland area to force Hmong people immigrate to the mountains. Under the pressure of Chinese, Hmong people suffered a lot. Finally, Hmong people decided to leave China to Southeast Asia. In this map, the green part is Laos. This picture shows a crying Hmong woman with her dead husband and son. Both were killed by NVA. France controlled Indochina around 1890. Indochina included Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. French controlling on Indochina was loose. French colony authorities let Hmong people self-manage themselves. The relationship between French colony authorities and the Hmong people was very good. Hmong people felt French colony authorities treat them as human beings. By 1890, the Laodian population was 1 million, with the area of 2,400,000 square kilometers. So the Laodian population was small. The boundary line of Laos was set by French colony authorities. The boundary line between Laos and Vietnam is Central Vietnamese mountains.
The Hmong soldiers. Because when the enemy comes in one side of the village fighting
in First Indochina War, 1947 to 1954, Hmong people stood alongside French colony army to fight against Viet Minh. Actually, Viet Minh was North Vietnamese Communist Army led by Ho Chi Minh. Actually, Viet Minh was NVA. Hmong people hated NVA and Vietnamese. Hmong people think NVA would become the new master in Laos. In 1954, based on Geneva Agreement, First Indochina War ended. In this war, the fight was between French colony authorities' army versus NVA. At last, France admitted the independence of Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. Laos became the Kingdom of Laos. Vietnam was divided into two parts: North Vietnam, which was controlled by Vietnamese Communist Party; South Vietnam, with the leader of Nhu Dinh Dien. North Vietnam and South Vietnam were both admitted by the United Nations. Both were legitimate countries. Sihanouk became the king of Cambodia Kingdom. In 1954, there were three main tribes in Laos. They were Lowland Thai, Highland Thai, Highland Hmong. The total population in Laos was about 2 million. The Hmong people were about 400,000. Hmong people are great fighters. They are brave. They had a self-organization system which was organic, like trees and grasses. Hmong was a dominant force in Laos. For thousands of years, Hmong people continued to fight against the Chinese in order to get their homeland. At last, like other nations in the world, Hmong people seemed to have their dreams come true. They would have their true homeland, Laos. The floating life of Hmong people seemed to be ended in Laos. In 1960, the Communist bloc decided to swallow South Vietnam. First, the Communist bloc would swallow South Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. Then, the bloc would swallow Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Burma, even India. At that time, the hands of the Soviet Union were in Cuba. The utmost target of the Communist bloc was to destroy the US. That was domino theory. The reason of the US to support South Vietnam was to stop the advancing of Communist bloc to all other non-communist countries. So in 1960, the new fight began in Vietnam and Laos.